in and I'll upload the video here in YouTube, and you just need to go to D2L or your email. I'll post a link and you just watch the link from there. Okay. So we talked about these two center on last Wednesday. We talk about the mean, and we also talk about the median. Okay. I just want to point out that there are a few things that is very important about the mean and median here. First thing is the mean is affected by outliers, and median is not affected by outliers. This is the most important facts that you need to know. So what happens is if you detect or if you find any outliers in your data set, you have to report the median. Okay, so this is a little notes I want to point out to you guys. This is very important. Okay, so if you find any outliers, now outliers here can be one or can be a lot, you have to report the median. Okay. In the end of this chapter 3, which is 3.3, there are ways for us to find outliers. When you learn that way, you will figure out those numbers of outliers. Last Wednesday class, some of you told me about, when you guys did the dot plots. Some of you mentioned about, hey, is this outliers? We know the other far on one end is outliers. And then the other one, I say, well, I don't think so, but we didn't know it until you learn 3.3. So if you find out there are any outliers, please report the median. Okay. Otherwise, if you don't have any outliers, you will report the mean. Okay. And class, if you have any questions, please either raise your hand in here. I think you guys have to raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself and talk to me, or you can type it in the chat. Either way, I'm fine with it. Okay. The next thing we will talk about here is a mode. So this is so in order for you to know, there are 4 types of measure of center: the mean, median, mode, and mid-range. So we did the mean and the median. These are the two that are the most famous one that we use a lot. We will do the mode here. So what is a mode? A mode in this case is, the mode in this case is where you have the greatest frequencies. Okay. So when you look at a histogram that we did last time, the histogram that we did last time, we have a mode, and the mode is where is the tallest one, the highest frequency. So in the data set that you have, we can have a mode here. You can have one mode, which is called a unimodal. You can have more than one mode, so it can be a bimodal or multimodal. So a bimodal means you have 2 modes. A multimodal means you have more than 2 modes. Okay, or you can have no mode at all. Okay, let me show it to you. What is the mode in this case? Okay, so so example in this case is if you have if your data set has these numbers, 1, 2, 2, 3, and 4. So we know the mode in this case will be 2. The reason why the mode in that case is 2 is because 2 occurs the most frequently. That means it came up the most time. Okay. And then, so this is what we call as a unimodal, because you only get one mode. Okay. If you have data set like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, then your modes in this case is 1 and 2. The reason why your modes in this case is 1 and 2 is because 1 and 2 came out twice. 3 and 4 doesn't show only one time. So this is what we call as a bimodal. It means you have 2 modes in this case. And then multi-modals means it appears more than 2. So you have 3 modes or more than 3 modes. We call that multi-modals. What is considered no mode? So if you have a data set like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then your mode in this case will be no. Okay. So in order for us to have no mode, your frequency is the same for each data. Okay. So if you have no mode, that means they all show up the same frequency. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at this, and they don't have, and I mean, everyone here show up only once. So that's no mode. And I want you guys to know the difference between a no mode and a zero mode. A zero mode is where, for this example, a 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So this mode is 0. So make sure you know the difference between a no mode and a zero mode, because a zero mode means the number 0 is the most greatest frequency. That means it came out the most time. No mode means they don't show up at all. I mean, they all have exactly the same value. Now, in StatCrunch, the mode that you use in StatCrunch, where you go under stat, I'll show you later on in StatCrunch, where you go under, there you go. It's the same place you find the mean and the median. Oh, I still have that issue now, huh? So I do have, let me see the language. Okay, I need to sign in. Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this again. Something happens to my StatCrunch. Does anyone having this issue? Because I know some students told me about this. Cannot go into StatCrunch. Should not be a problem here. Okay. Usually, if something happens like that, just maybe you log out and then log back in. So in order for us to find the mean, median, and mode, you go to stat, summary stats, and column. So this is the part that you guys have to do. So unfortunately, when you do it this way, stat, summary stats, and column, for the mode piece, they're only able to find one mode question. That means that if you only have one mode, they will tell you that one mode. But if you have a multi-model or a bi-model answers, they won't tell you what are the answers. They'll just tell you, oh, this is a multi-model mode. Okay. For example, is I'll show it to you in your StatCrunch here. So let's say that this is your test score. Okay. And let's say I just put 50, 50, 50, 55, and 56. Example, make it things easier. So we can do the mode in this case, and we know the mode here is 50 because it came up 3 times. So we go to the test score. Now, what you need to know is if you scroll down to this on the statistic part, they only shows mean and median. They don't have any mode. So what you guys need to do here is you have to click on this statistic and you just move your mouse over there and you say select. If you look at the little yellow things that comes out on the bottom on that box there, you say select more than one with shift click or control click. So in order for you to do this, I just told my students, instead of using shift click or control click, you just use your control button, hold on to your control button and press A. Oops, so click on, let's say click on N first, and then you just do control A. So a control A means control all. That means in this case, you are finding all of this, and mode is the very end. So if you look at this, this is the mode which is come end. And when you compute this, we know the mode is 50 in this case, because you have 50 came up 3 times. I'll show it to you again. How do we do the mode case? Okay. So let's say that you want to add another let me add 3 more 55. So now 2 more 55s. Now we got the mode in this case are 50 and 55 because those two came up the most frequently. So when you go back to the same way, stat, summary stats column, and you go to test score, and again, click on N, and then in your keyboard, hold on to your control button, and then press the letter A, and you will do what we call as Control A. You will Control A means everything, so copy and paste everything into that site, and you hit compute. And this is where you will see that in your StatCrunch, they don't tell you what mode is this, they just tell you it's a multiple modes. So how do we fix this issue? And we know the modes here are 50 and 55. So in order for us to fix this issue, okay, so this is the little stuff that you need to know. So for multi-model in StatCrunch, so that means that if you go to StatCrunch and you find yourself having what we call as a multiple modes here, you need to go to Stat, Tables, and Frequency. And then you do order by count, descent, and compute. If an error message will pop up, you just hit cancel. So this is how you will find modes, but are multi-models. In StatCrunch. Okay, so your StatCrunch, in order for you to find if you have a multi-models like what we see here, what you need to do here, class, is go under Stat, Tables, and Frequency. So go under Stat, Tables, and Frequency. Select the test score, which is the one we have, and then ordered by the count ascending or count descending, doesn't matter. And then you hit compute. So in this case, they actually do what we call as a frequency table. And you notice that the one that is the most frequency in this case will be 50 and 55, because that is the most highest frequency. So that is your mode in this case, or in this case, this is your mode. These are your modes, which means you got 2 modes here. Okay. So so this is how you find multi-models in if you want to do it in your StatCrunch. Okay. So make sure you guys do the normal one first. And if the mode says that it is multi-models or you have multiple modes, then you do this way to figure out the modes in here. The last thing we're going to talk about here is mid-range. Okay. Now, the reason why I put a little star on mid-range is because StatCrunch does not have mid-range. So it doesn't have this to find mid-range. So you do need to memorize this formula. So this is the first formulas that I do want you to memorize for your test. Mid-range in this case is you take the minimum and the maximum, you add them up and divide it by 2. Okay, so this is the mid-range. So the mid-range in this case is actually the middle value between the maximum and the minimum. Okay, mid-range in this case will be affected by outliers. Okay, and a lot of students get confused by range. Okay, our range in this case is actually maximum minus minimum. Okay, so a lot of students in my test, they get confused between mid-range and range. The range formula is maximum minus minimum, which you will learn in 3.2. But mid-range in this case, make sure you know it's minimum plus maximum divided by 2. So it's not, you don't subtract them, you add them and then divide it by 2. Okay. And again, class, StatCrunch doesn't have mid-range. So you have to use this formula to find it. StatCrunch will provide you the minimum and the maximum. So if you go to your, the same way we just mentioned, stat, summary, stats, and column, and if you compute the test score here, they will give you the minimum and the maximum. Okay, so what you need to do with this minimum maximum is add them up and divide it by 2. Okay, so this is the only statistic that you require to find yourself, where StatCrunch will not provide you that answer, or that it will not provide you the value. Okay, so let me go through some examples. Before we go through some examples, does anyone have any questions for me? All right, so in question number 1, you have to find the mean, median, mode, and mid-range. And this is for question 1 and question 2. So question 1 and question 2, you have to find the mean, median, mode, and mid-range for this sample data. And then make sure you guys, this is very, very, very important, is make sure you use the units of measurements given to us. And then they should have questions. You have to answer the questions in this case. So you have to do quite a lot of works per question here. So the first question in this case is asking us for the, these below are the prices in dollars for one night at a different hotels located in Las Vegas Boulevard, which is the Las Vegas Strip in Vegas. So you need to find what is the mean here. What is the median? What is the mode? And what is the mid-range? Okay, and then make sure you know the units. So in this case, since they are all prices in US dollars, so so your unit in this case is dollars. So how do I tell students to label your units is if you're lazy to put dollar signs per ABCD here. So I will just use unit in this case is dollars. So I just use this to tell that so you do not need to worry about taking points off because of the units. So you just put little stuff like this in the corner, on the side, or wherever in this question to tell me that the units here that we use is dollars. And then here is the question that you need to answer. So if you decided to stay at one of these hotels, which statistic is most relevant? So when I say statistic means which one of these 4, mean, median, mode, mid-range is relevant. And then another question also asking you, apart from the price given to here, identify one other important factor that would affect the choice of picking these hotels. Okay, so so let's figure out how you find this mean, median, mode, and mid-range first. Now again, we are using StatCrunch to do it. Some of you might use a calculator, some of you might use other software like Excel or anything. So we are using StatCrunch. If you do this in your online homework, there should be a little triangle, not triangle, rectangles on the corner here. So if you click on it, they will say export your data into StatCrunch, and they will automatically export it into StatCrunch here. But however, we don't have that features in this case. So this you have to, for your homework and your test, you do need to type in your data sets by hand. Okay, and I just want to point out to you guys is if one of these numbers are typed wrongly, then your mean, median, mode, mid-range will be wrong also. So I will highly strongly suggest you to check your data set or your data that you type in. Make sure it's the same as the data set provided to us. Okay, so how do you find the mean, median, mode, and mid-range? For this question is you go to stats, you go to summary stats, you go to column. This time we'll do price, and then don't forget you click N and then Control A to do everything, and then you hit compute. Now I do have students. Don't do this. What did the students do is the students copy this whole summary statistics and paste it right here. So do not do that. Please, please, please do not do that in my test. Do not copy this whole thing and paste it right here. I do want you to find your own. That means you have to tell me what is the mean and median and all these things. Do not copy this and paste it. Okay, and then you want me to do the work for you. I do not do that. So make sure you do it. So mean in this case is 171.5. I'm going to make this so you guys can see it on both ends. This is what happens when you teach in Zoom. So it's a little bit tough to. There you go. So the mean in this case is, if you want to put a dollar sign, you can, 171.25. The median, which is right over here, is 174. The mode in this case, you have to go all the way to the very end. And it says no mode. So in this case, you say this is no mode. And then for the mid-range, you take the maximum and the minimum. So this is the max and the mean. You add them up and divide it by 2. Okay. So you need you need a calculator to do this. So 77 plus 264. This is the maximum and the minimum. You add them up and divide it by 2. So this is 170.5. So this is how we find the mean, median, mode, and mid-range using your StatCrunch, which is I highly recommend you to do so. And now the question is asking, if you decided to stay at one of these hotels, which one of these 4 statistics or 4 measure of center that we use here going to be most relevant? Now, I just want to point out to you guys is in statistic, if this kind of questions came out in your test or your homework, there are no right or wrong answer here. That means, you know, when you do math, you always have either correct or wrong, right? Either black or white. In statistics, we have gray area, means that you can pick, you can pick mean, you can pick median, you can pick mode, you can pick mid-range. The only thing you need to know is you have to support your answers. Okay, and make sure when you support your answer, you have to use a logical and just logical statement or very to support it. So not something that, you know, so you have to use logical statement here. Now we will not pick mode in this case because we don't have mode here. So majority of students will pick mean here. Okay, so so some people will pick mean here. And the reason why people pick mean is because all the data is accounted for. What does that mean when I say all the data is accounted for? It means that we use every single data here. So some of you might pick mean for your answer in this case. That means if you want to go to stay in Vegas, it's going to be around $170 some a night. Okay, and the mean is a good choice. Now, sometimes some people will pick the median. The reason why people will pick the median is because of outliers. So as you know that if you look at these questions, we might have some outliers. So we can also look at the graph. Okay, so if you want to draw a histogram of the price of the Vegas hotel here. So we might have some outliers at the far end here. Maybe this 264 might be an outlier here. So, so we might have an outlier in this case. Again, I haven't teach you how to find outliers yet. So people who pick median here is one, the main reason why people pick median is because of the outlier case here, and maybe 264. Maybe, okay, again, you doesn't know. Or some people will pick the mid-range, because mid-range is actually the middle between the high and the low, the max and the mean. So if we are on budget, we do not want to stay the the expensive one, the most expensive one, and we do not want to stay at the most cheapest one. So we want to find what is right in the middle. So some people will pick the mid-range is because of it is the value is between the high, the maximum, and the minimum. So this is usually people who are on budget. I mean, like they want to figure out, you know, I don't have a lot of money and I want to figure out. So you just look at what is the most expensive one and what is the most cheapest one, and then you just find the right in the middle, the common ground, and then you just find, oh, maybe that will be the price that we use. So again, class, to answer these kind of questions, you don't have the right or wrong. You can pick one of those, mean, median, or mid-range, but make sure you support your answer why you pick this. And the last question is asking is, apart from the price, identify one other factors that will affect your choice. So again, when you go to book a hotel room, price is one of the most important factor, because you don't pay a lot, but there are other factors that that you were looking for. So some other factors that you were talking about is maybe like what is the like what we have, the class level, like level, what I mean by class level here is like, is it like a 4-star hotel? Is it like a 3-star? We definitely know that the 264 is going to be a 5-star hotel, and definitely 77 will be a bit lower star. So if you want to stay at a very nice hotel, then you know you're going to pay a little bit more. Amenities is one of them. So some of them you do not, amenities will be something that the hotels have. I couldn't even spell that word. So like maybe you want the hotel has a pool or have a spa or have something else, you know. Restaurants will be part of amenities. So cleanliness is another one. Okay, so this is the one that if I want to book hotels, this is the one factor that I always look for, is how clean this hotel room is. Sometimes even expensive hotels, they don't clean it up. So there are other factors that might place on your choice here. Definitely price is one of the main one, but there are other factors you're looking for. Some students will say locations. Yep, location is another one. So I know this is at a strip. So the strip is quite long. So you want to figure out where is the location of the hotel in this case. So these are other factors that will affect your choice in this case. Anyone have any questions for this example? Right, we will repeat the same thing for question number 2. So question number 2 is also asking you to find the mean, median, mode, and mid-range here. Okay, but this time they want you to use the data set Earth-24, which is earthquake, using the magnitude as the variables in Richter scale. So Richter scale in this case is actually your unit. Okay, so again, if you're lazy to write Richter scale on all those things, just use units. And this data has 600 measures of earthquake. So you have to find the mean, median, and mid-range of this data set called earthquakes. And then in 1989, the San Francisco Bay was struck by an earthquake that was measured 7.0 on the Richter scale. So is this magnitude of the earthquake an outlier? So you figure out and explain it. So let's go into this data set 24. So how do we get into this data set 24 is you have to go into your StatLab to the StatCrunch page, StatCrunch site. Then you need to go to this data set from your textbook. Okay, so click the data set from your textbook here, and you will click on the data set, and we are looking at data set number 24, which is earthquakes. And if you click on it, there are two variables here. One is a magnitude and one is a depth. And our main goal here is just the magnitude, because the question here is asking for the magnitude, okay, not the depth. So you need to find what is the mean, median, mode, and mid-range for the magnitude, and there are 600 data in this case. So again, class, please use StatCrunch. You don't have time to put all this in your calculators. So go to Stat, go to Summary Stats, go to Column. Again, we'll only concentrate on magnitude. And then you hit Control A for your for everything that we will use here. And then you hit Compute. And here is your results for your answers in this case. So we will look for your mean, median, mode in this case. So based on your results, your mean in this case is 2.572. And again, the units are Richter scale. So you can use you can write Richter scale, but if you kind of like running out of time to test, then you just put a unit like this. And you can say the unit in this case is Richter scale. So when you do this, then you do not need to worry about taking any points off. Okay. So this is the mean in this case. And then I also need to tell you about roundings, because this is something that students will ask me in your test, how many decimal place that you need to round here. I always tell my students that a rule of thumb for roundings in anything on my work, like tests or notes or anything, is 2 or 3 decimal places. That is the most common rule of thumb that I was telling. Do not round 1. Do not give me all these decimal places. You're wasting your time writing them out. So again, I will tell you 2 or 3 decimal places that I will be asking for. Now, if I say I round this mean into 3 decimal places, then make sure everything follow after that will be round into 3 decimal places. That means you don't round. Mean is 3 and then median is 2, and this is 2 already, so you cannot do anything with him. So the median in this case is 2.49. That you cannot do anything because it is already in 2 decimal places. So I mean, that is, you know, how the cookies crumble. So that's why it happens this way. Now the modes, if you look at this, they say it has a multiple mode. So we have to figure out what are the modes here. But before we go and figure out the mode, let's figure out the mid-range first. So the mid-range is the middle of this minimum and maximum. So what you need to do here, class, is you have to add your minimum and your maximum. So 1.09 plus 4.69, and then you have to divide this by 2. So it's 2.89. So the mid-range is 2.8. Okay. So now we need to find your modes here, because this question has a multiple modes. So in order for us to find a multiple modes in your StatCrunch, you go under stats, you go under table, you go to frequency. Okay, stats, table, frequency. And then you select the columns or the variables that we use, in this case is magnitude. And then you order by ascending or descending, doesn't matter. Pick one out, just do descending. And you hit compute. Now, this is where your error will show up. So this error only happens when you have a lot of data, like in this case, 600. You just hit cancel. Okay. So in this case, you find out that these two magnitudes are the modes in this case, because it happens the most frequently. Okay. So this is actually, it's a bimodal, means you have two modes in this case. So your modes in this case will be 2.34 and 2.44. Okay. So this is how you find your modes if you have a multiple modes here. Let me show you again how we do this. You go to stats, you go to tables, you go under frequency, select depth, magnitude, sorry, that's the correct variables, and count. Ascending or descending, either one of these. I usually do descending, then they put the big one, the highest frequency down and hit compute. If an error message came out, hit cancel, don't hit OK. Otherwise, you will get the table out. So the one that you see the most frequencies, that will be your modes in this case. Okay. The rest you don't worry about it because we are looking for the highest frequency. So these are your modes. Okay. So so this is how we find your mean, median, mode, and mid-range for this question. And then the question is asking is we got an earthquake in San Francisco and it's measured 7.0. Is this magnitude an outlier? So as you know that the most highest frequency, if you remember, or you can do a graph of a histogram here of the magnitude. And what you notice is the most highest frequency in this case is around 4.5, 4.75. So that around that. And now the question is telling us about 7.0. So we can tell that 7.0 is somewhere here. So we for sure know that 7.0 here is an outlier. Okay. So 7.0 is an outlier here because it lies far away from the rest of the data set. So again, we did not use a right formula to calculate this. We just use your histogram. Then some students will ask me, is that a good way to do it? Well, I will say not really, because you haven't learned the correct way to find the outliers. But as we know, by looking at the histogram, 7 is a little bit off here. So it's kind of obvious that it is an outlier. The best way for us to do this is to do a calculation. And yes, in 3.3, you will learn that, and you'll figure out that this 7.0 is an outlier. Okay. So this is just what we call as just not the correct way, but I mean, I will say by using the histogram. Okay. So anyone have any questions for me in this question too? All right, so we're gonna go back to the last thing that we will learn in this 3.1 is how do you find the mean? So I have questions. We use the histogram. So in order for us to figure out the outliers in this case, we use the histogram. So you call StatCrunch to draw a histogram, and you just look at your magnitudes here. And you can figure out that the highest we can get here is 4 point something, 4.75. And you can actually, so there are 4 rows of this. There are 4 of this histogram row. So 4.69. So we know that 7 is a little bit far away from the histogram here. So that's the reason why that we can tell that 7 is an outlier, because it is far away from the rest of the data set here. So we're using histogram to look at it. Okay. Francis, is that good?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Again, you haven't learned the correct way to calculate the outliers. You will learn it in Wednesday class. Yep. So by Wednesday, we will redo question 2 again. And by that time, you should know that that is an outlier.
Right, I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you know that mean can be found by adding all the numbers and divided by the total numbers, right? But what happens if I give you a frequency distribution? How do you find the mean in this case? Okay, so for example, in this case is I give you a frequency distribution. So like example, this is a frequency distribution. How do you figure out the mean in this case? Now, frequency distribution doesn't provide us exact value of the data set. So like this case, the best actor is 1 between 20 to 29 years old. So we do not know this actor, best actor, what age, how old is he? Is he 20, 21, 22, 25, 29? So we didn't know what is the exact value. And how can you find a mean in this case? Because as you know, mean, you need the exact value, like this case, right? You need all this exact value, and then you add them up and then divide it by the total, right? This is what we do. So, so if you have a frequency distribution like this, in order for us to find the mean of that kind of frequency distribution, we do need to have formulas in this case. So the mean in this case is actually the summation of the frequency times the midpoint over by summation of frequency. Now you do not need to worry you don't need to worry about memorizing this formula, because StatCrunch will help you to find this. Okay. That is also another mean that we use a lot in our class or in our world here. It's called a weighted mean. The most famous weighted mean that we use here is GPA. So I think you guys know what's a GPA, right? GPA is actually a type of mean. It's called a weighted mean. And the reason why we call it as a weighted mean is because it depends on your credit hours. And also it depends on your grades. So that means it's weighted based on these 2 important features. How much, okay, you earn an A in the class, what is your credit hours? If your credit hours are 5 credit hours and you got an A, that mean is more than you just get a 3 credit hours, you got an A. So that's why it's based on the weight. So for the formula for the weighted mean, it's very similar to the it's very similar to your the mean for the frequency distribution formula. Is you take the grade times the credit hours, you take the sum of it, and then you divide by the sum of the credit hours. Again, you do not need to worry about memorizing these formulas here. The reason why is because we will be using StatCrunch to replace it. Okay. So how do we use StatCrunch to find this mean for the frequency distribution and the mean for the weighted mean here? Is make sure that you have to enter 2 data into your StatCrunch. Okay. One is where you enter your midpoint, and another on one column, and then the other column is you enter the frequency. Now this is to find the mean for the frequency distribution. Now, if you want to find the mean for the weighted mean, then make sure you enter grade on the first bin and the weight, which is the credit hours on the second one. And then what you need to do in this case is you go under stats, summary stats, group bin data. Okay. And then they will ask you to put where is the bin in. Make sure you select the midpoint or the grade. And where is the count in? The count is in the frequency or the credit hours. But don't forget, don't worry about that. I'll show it to you how to do all this, and then you know what to do. Okay. There's a little note here that you need to watch out. Sometimes they want you to figure out, are they having a big difference between the two means? What do you mean by the difference between the two means? So there are what we found here is what we call as a computed mean. Okay, so what we calculate here is called the sample of the computed mean. Okay, so when I say computed means that is something that we just use estimation. Okay, and so it's not, I mean, it's just kind of using estimation. So that's why we take the midpoints here. So don't forget, we do need to take midpoints. So what happened is usually if you have, you did the computed means and you want to figure out, are they close with the actual mean? What do you figure out is you need to find what is the percent difference. How do you find the percent difference? You take the difference amount over by your original amount. If this percent difference is more than 5%, then this is actually not close at all. Okay, so otherwise, if you find out this percent difference is less than or equal to 5%, then it will be what we call as that will be close in this case. So so sometimes we given this two means and we want to figure out these two means are close to each other. So again, we will use this 5% here, and we have to find what is the percent difference between the computed mean and the actual mean. And if this percent difference is more than 5%, then these two means are not close to each other. However, if you find this percent difference is less than or equal to 5%, then these two means are actually close to each other. Again, I will show you how to do all this work in the next few examples. Okay, so what is most important that I will tell you guys to know in this section 3.1 is make sure you know make sure you know how to find these 4 different measure of center using StatCrunch. 2, these formulas you have to memorize, which is the mid-range. And 3, we will use StatCrunch to find this frequency distribution, the mean for the frequency distribution and the weighted mean. When you guys go and watch the videos or watch how you solve this, they actually will use this formula to teach you how to find these means, these computed means. I will say it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just I don't want you guys to get confused between the method I'm teaching, which is I use StatCrunch, and using the formulas. So if you want to use the formula, then you have to memorize this formula. Otherwise, you just need to know how to use StatCrunch in this case. So let's go look at some examples here so you guys will know what I'm talking about. So this question, number 3, is given us a frequency distribution for the pulse rates of females. And the question here wants us to find what is the mean of this data. And then after that, you have to compare this computed mean that you found with the actual mean of 76.3 beats per minute. So what is an actual mean? Actual mean is where the question provides you all the data sets like this. And then you just add them all up and divide it by, how many students, how many people we have. So that is what we call as the actual mean. So the mean that we're calculating in question 1 and 2 These are the mean that is actual mean because we add them all up and divide it by the numbers. Okay. So how do you find the computed mean for this frequency distribution? First thing is you need to know your midpoints. Okay. So that's why there's a little column as blank here. The reason why it's blank is because you have to figure out your midpoint in this case. Now, I think you guys still remember how you find the midpoint in chapter 2.1. Midpoint is simply taking the lower class limit and the upper class limit, you add them up and divide it by 2. Okay, so this is how you have to figure out your midpoint first before you do find the computed mean in this case. So you take 60 plus 69 and divide this by 2. So this is 64.5. And you're going to do this for all the classes here. So 70 plus 79, and then you divide this by 2. This is 74.5. And then you do the same thing for the next one, 80 plus 89 divided by 2. This is how you find your midpoints here. Oh, now, this is a good one. How do you use your calculator? Now, if you see what I just entered in my calculator, I take 80 plus 89 divided by 2. It came out to be 124.5. Now, that number we know is going to be wrong because we know the pattern here, they all are increased by 10, right? Because we know the class width here is 10. So we know this is not to be 124.5. It should be 84.5. So do you know why the calculator got 124.5 instead of 84.5, which we know is 84? Anyone here know why the calculator show up this way? Some basic stuff you need to know about your calculator. So I just want to tell you that if you do this way in your calculator will follow the orders of operation. And as you know, orders of operation is PEMDAS. So what did the calculator do is instead of adding them and then divide by 2, they will divide by 2 first because division comes first in PEMDAS, then addition. So they will divide by 2 first, then they will add 80. So that's the reason why that when you guys use your calculator, make sure you know that your calculators are following PEMDAS. So how do we fix this? Is wrong. So how do we fix this? You have to give parentheses on it. So you have to parenthesize 80 plus 89. So there is a parenthesis in your calculator like this. And then you close the parenthesis and you divide by 2. So that means you will tell your calculator to do the PEMDAS parenthesis first, then before you divide by 2. So this is 84.5. Okay, please make sure you guys know that your calculator is a machine. So you are the one that tell the calculator to do things. So make sure you know your calculator do not think. They just say, all right, here's your answer. So just follow PEMDAS. Okay. So the next one is 94.5. And then the next one is 104.5. And then 114.5. And then the last one is 1. So this is your midpoints in this case. So what you need to do, class, is to enter your frequency and your midpoint in your StatCrunch. Okay. So in your StatCrunch, okay, make sure you pick another variable in this case. So I will use var3 here as your frequency, and var4 in this case as your midpoint. Okay. So again, if you do this by hand, just want to point out to you to watch what you enter in your StatCrunch. Again, one wrong answer will mark everything wrong. Okay. And when you do this in your online homework with MyStatLab, there should be a little triangle here, a rectangle here, so you can export this into StatCrunch. And I don't think so they will provide you the midpoint. So you actually need to calculate the midpoint for yourself. So once you enter your frequency and your midpoint into StatCrunch, so what you need to do is you go under stats, you go under summary stats, you go under group bin data. So you go to the last one. Last time we go to columns. This time we go to group bin data. And then you say bin in, you select the midpoint. Okay. And counts in, you select the frequency. Okay. So you just need to select. That's why I put in midpoint and frequency here, and you hit compute. We only concentrate on the mean. We don't look at the rest of it. So this is your computed mean in this case. So your computed mean is 76.75. Okay, and the units is BPM, which stands for bits per minute. So this is how you find mean if I give you a frequency distribution. Now the question also asks, compare this mean, the computed mean, with the actual mean 6.3. Are they close or are they not close? So in order for us to figure out if they're close or not close, you have to find what is the percent difference. What is the percent difference? The formula is you take the difference amount over by the original amount. So what we do is we find what is the difference between these two numbers. So 76.75 minus 76.3. So that difference is going to be 0.045. And then you need to divide that with the actual mean. So what we call it as the percent difference here is 0.45, which is the difference between the computed mean and the actual mean. And you divide this by the actual mean in this case. And because this is a percent, so we will multiply this by 100. So the same thing like what we figure out percentages here. So you take the 0.45 divided by 76.3, which is the actual mean, and you multiply this by 100. So this came out to be 0.59%. Which in this case is less than 5% because that number is so small. So since the percent difference is less than 5%, then we can say that both the computed means and actual means are close to each other. So this is how you figure it out is if you look at your percent difference, if it's less than or equal to 5%, then they are close. The both of these means are close. Otherwise, if they are more than 5%, then they are not close at all. So in this case, we found out that these percentages is only 0.59%. So we can say that these two means are close to each other. Anyone have any questions? And I also will post this in D2L, the notes that I type up here. So if you want to copy this into the notes that we're supposed to have, be my guest. And if you are, I'm going too fast, you don't have time to copy it, just look at D2L or your email later on today. I will send it to you guys. Yeah, Morena, all of this will be due in for Yep. Again, your exam consists of chapter 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. We skip chapter 4. And yes, this will be this question can become up in the answer. Yes. Question 4. A student earned grades of C, B, A on this course has a corresponding number of credit hours of 34232. Yeah, everything we do in this class will be possibly questions that comes up in your exam. And if I come up questions in your exam, it won't be exactly the same. If let's say number 3, it won't be exactly the same. So I won't do this. Maybe I'll change it to some other frequency tables. Maybe the frequency table of the hours of work in the class, work hours in the week, so it's a different types of frequency table, but I will ask you the same thing to find the mean. So it's the same concept, but definitely totally different questions or different numbers, different data sets. So this question 4 here. Oh, you do have enough time to finish your test. Yep. I guarantee you guys will have enough time to do it. Students earn grades of C, B, A of this course are corresponding number of the credit hours of 34232. The grading system to get your GPA in this case is A is 4, B is 3, C is 2, D is 1, F is 0. So this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is fixed. So that's why we call this as your weight, because the most highest GPA you can get is a 4.0, means you get all A's in the class, and the lowest GPA you can get is 0, means you get F, in the class. So, so this is fixed. Okay, so there's no such thing as a GPA of 4 point something or 5. We don't have that kind of GPA. Pardon me. Ooh. So, so the question here is asking us to compute the GPA here. Now, this question wants us to round the answer into 2 decimal places. And then the question also says that in order for you to make it to the Dean's List, your GPA has to be 3.33 or greater. So how do we find this GPA? So what you need to do, class, is in order for you to find the GPA, you have to put in your grades into your StatCrunch and credit hours in your StatCrunch. So these are the 2 things you need to do when the question wants you to find the GPA, the grade and the credit hours. So this question says that if you earn a C in a 3 credit hours, so in StatCrunch, I'm going to do grade and credit hours. Let's put credit in. So, excuse me. So, C, you got a 3 credit class. You earn a B in a 4 credit class. And then you got an A in a 2 credit class. So C will be 3, B will be 4, A will be 2. And then you got another A in a 3 credit class. And you got another A in a 2 credit class. So this is how you're gonna enter this into your StatCrunch, where the corresponding grades is the grades that you earn here is correspond to your credit hours that is given. However, we have to change your grade here to the point system. That means, what are the points for this case? So C in this case is a 2 points. A B in this case is a 3 points. A in this case will be giving you 4 points. So you have to change all your grades into the points based on this. A is 4, B is 3, C is 2, D is 1, F is 0. And again, class, this point system are fixed. You cannot change it. Same thing happens when you go to college. In this college, if you want to find a GPA in this class or in this school or in this semester, this is how you do it. Okay. So so how do you find your GPA in this case is you go to, again, stat, summary stats, group bin data. Bins in, you will select your grade. Counts, you will select your credit hours. Okay. And you will hit compute. And again, the mean that you see here is your GPA in this case. Okay. So let me show you how you do it again. So you go to stats. Once you enter your grades with the corresponding point system given to us and the credits that is given to us that correspond to your grade, go to stat, go to summary stats, go to group bin data. For the bin, you select the grade. For the counts, you select the credit, and then you hit compute. The mean that you see here is your GPA here. And this question wants us to round your GPA into 2 decimal place. So your GPA for this question is 3.29. Okay, because 3.285, 5 is big enough to round. So it's 3.29. And the question here will ask you is, do the student make it to the dean's list? And in order for you to make it to the dean list, you have to get 3.33 or greater. So in this case, the student did not make it to the dean's list. Okay, so unfortunately, he's just a few points shy. So too bad. So this is how we find your GPA in this. So now you guys know how to find your GPA in the school in a semester. So let's say that this is your first semester. This is your grade. You got 3.29 GPA. And let's say next semester you take more classes. So what happened is this table will be a lot more longer. So by the end of when you graduate, you should have a very long list of grades and a very long list of credit hours. And that's how you find your GPA for your whole entire degree or diploma or associates. Okay. So yes, so the more classes you take, the more grade and the more longer the grades and credits that you get. Okay, so that means the table is getting even bigger. This is very typical. So this is how you find GPA in the college. Questions, anyone? Right, we'll do the last one, question 5. The 5 recent United States presidents has a mean age of 56.2 years at the time of the inauguration. 4 of these ages are 64, 46, 54, and 47. You have to find what is the missing value. So you should know that's 5, but you're only given 4. So this is kind of like something that we like to, kind of like an algebra type question. So how do we do question 5 in this case is, as you know, that mean is you add everything up and divide it by the total number. So you just need to, this time you have to actually compute the mean by hand. That means you don't use StatCrunch. So you actually have to add all these 5 ages, US president ages. Since we're missing the last one, so we're going to replace it by the value X. And we're going to divide this whole thing by 5 because there are 5 ages here. And that's the mean. And the mean in this case is actually 56.2. So this question is asking us to figure out what is X in this case, which is a missing value here. So in order for us to find X, since we are dividing by 5 here, we want to get rid of this 5. So what we do here is we will have to multiply both sides by 5 here. So this is kind of like solving equations in your algebra class. Why we need to take this and times 5 is because the 5, and when you multiply and divide by 5, they will cancel each other off. So what happened in this case that you notice that your 5 and 5 will be canceled off when you do the multiply and divide. And then you just need to add all these like terms, called combined like terms. So 64 plus 46 plus 54 again, 54 plus 47. So this came up with 211. So this is 211 plus x. So 211 is where I add all the 4 ages of the presidents. And don't forget, I need to multiply this by 5. So I need to take 56.2 times 5. So that came up to be 281. Okay. And the last thing we need to do is to solve for x. So we need to get rid of 211. So I will subtract 211 on both sides. Again, why we need to subtract 211 on both sides? So that they will cancel with that side, so that you will get x by itself. So what do I do here is I will take this whole side and I will subtract 211. And I'm going to move all this over there. Yeah, this is what happens when I. Yep, there you go. And the reason why we're doing this is because we will cancel this 211 with this 211. I think you guys know the solve equation here. So you get x by itself in this case. So what is the 281 take away 211? I think it's 70. Yep. So that is your answer in this case. So the missing value for this case will be 70. This is used a lot, especially when you want when finals are arrive. And then a lot of students will ask me, hey, David, do you know what I need to take? What do I need to earn in the finals so I can get an A or B or C in the class? This is the type of questions that we will get. But this kind of work is what we have to do here, is to take all your tests out, all the stuff, and then you add them up. And then you divide by how many tests you take. And then you equals to the average, the mean in this case. If you want to get an A, that means you need to get at least a 90%. So that would be 90. If you want to get a B, it's 80, C is 70, and so on. And then you do repeat what you just did on this kind of question. So it's very similar to this kind of questions. This homework is due on next Wednesday, which will be the 21st. Okay, so the next Wednesday, which should be 21st. You only got one homework due on this coming Wednesday, which will be 2.3. So that will be a bit easy. I know this you guys having difficulty, but I will tell you that 3.1 onwards, you find out the class is getting a bit more challenging. So I will point out again to you guys is make sure you guys start working on this, and make sure you guys get familiarized with StatCrunch, because we'll be using StatCrunch a lot in this class. So that is the end for today's class. Anyone have any questions for me? Right. If you have questions, you may stay. If you do not have any questions, you may go. I will post all this in D2L, and I also will send it to your email. Yep, hopefully I feel better. And if there is a Zoom on Wednesday, I will let you guys know. Otherwise, we'll meet back in class on Wednesday. Okay. So hopefully you guys will do well. And don't forget, class, you don't have school tomorrow. Yep, thank you so much. Yep. So you don't have school tomorrow. So I know we don't meet tomorrow, but don't come to school tomorrow. Okay. So I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take good care. Your exam is going